the most terrifying sinkholes.
Mysterious 260-foot wide hole appears in Northern Siberia. The discovery of an enormous crater on the Yamal peninsula in Northern Siberia has triggered an intense debate surrounding its formation. The oval-shaped crater sits nearly 3,000 kilometers east of Moscow. It measures 30 meters in diameter, is around 70 meters deep, and has a lake at its base, 80% of which scientists say appears to be made up of ice. Two popular theories have emerged explaining how the hole was formed. One theory posits that the hole was created by internal forces, the result of a global warming-related underground explosion caused by the mixture of gas, water, and salt. The other theory hypothesizes the hole was created by a pingo, or a hill formed around a buried chunk of ice in regions of permafrost. In geological formations such as these, the ice pushes through the surface and gradually thaws as it is exposed to the sun, leaving behind a large hole. The crater is located some 30 kilometers away from Bovanenkovo gas field, which suggests it was not likely man-made. Scientists reportedly still need to conduct a number of additional tests in order to debunk some of the wilder theories surrounding the formation of the crater. Other famous massive sinkholes include the Bio-Corn sinkhole in Louisiana, the Corvette Swallower in Kentucky, the Gates of Hell in Turkmenistan, and the seemingly bottomless sinkhole that appeared in Guatemala City in 2010.
Sinkhole swallows vehicles on Australian beach campground. Dozens of holidaygoers got quite the scare over the weekend when the beach they were camping on suddenly collapsed into the ocean. A large sinkhole opened up near Queensland's Rainbow Beach, terrifying campers along Inskip Point on Saturday. Fishermen were the first to notice the shoreline quickly receding into the ocean around 10:30 p.m. Casey Hughes told ABC News it sounded like thunder as the sinkhole was opening. The sinkhole was 150 meters long, 50 meters wide, and 3 meters deep. The sinkhole swallowed up one car, a caravan, a camper trailer, and several tents. 140 people were evacuated from the campground. No injuries were reported. Most of the campers were able to move their vehicles out of harm's way before their campsites disappeared underwater.
Giant sinkhole collapse in China is now 3,000 square feet. Terrifying footage showing an enormous sinkhole swallow an entire street in China after an underground tunnel collapses. The collapse is just outside the Federation Garden residential area in Dongguan and was caught on video by nearby residents. The sinkhole was originally a small crater, which had previously swallowed a parked car. Construction workers were attempting to fill the crater with concrete in order to stem the collapse of the underground tunnel. Instead, the crater became a sinkhole, swallowing the entire street and exposing building foundations. One construction worker trapped underground was killed and several others injured. The construction and tunneling were for the city's subway, which has yet to be put into use. The road began suffering collapses as early as August 11th, and this final sinkhole, 3,000 square feet across, is only the fifth collapse this month. Water and gas pipelines were also crushed and broken, adding additional problems such as flooding and possible gas explosions. Hundreds of residents have been evacuated and large stretches of road have been sectioned off while authorities decide what to do next. The construction company is blaming the collapse on the poor condition of the road and recent heavy rainfall in the area. Hopefully, they've realized that filling in the subway with more cement is a bad idea.
Sinkhole swallows 5 people in China. 2 Chinese men narrowly escaped death by sinkhole. Last Thursday could have ended differently for 2 lucky men in China's eastern Fujian province when they narrowly avoided being swallowed by a large sinkhole. The sinkhole cracked open right in the middle of a busy junction in Jinjiang City after a heavy truck passed through the spot half an hour before the pair came upon the 3-meter hole. According to local transport authorities, the sand beneath the tarmac collapsed, causing the weakest part of the road to slump. The white sedan you see here is driving slowly, trying to avoid the death pit, but it was soon sucked in from the edge. The driver and the passenger managed to clamber out of the car as it dangled over the edge, and just seconds later, the car flipped and toppled upside down into the hole. 6 people, including 2 6-year-old children, were however killed 2 months ago when their car fell into a 6-meter deep, 8-meter wide hole in a motorway in Crimea.
A monster sinkhole opened up at the National Corvette Museum in Bowling Green, Kentucky in the early hours of Wednesday morning, swallowing 8 rare sports cars. The hole, estimated to be around 30 foot deep and 40 foot wide, opened up inside the Sky Dome area of the museum. No injuries were reported. Of the 8 vehicles swallowed by the hungry earth, 2, a 2009 ZR1 Blue Devil and a 1993 ZR1 Spider, were on loan from the Corvette company, while the other 6 damaged vehicles were owned by the museum. They include a 1984 PPG pace car, a 1962 black Corvette, a 1992 white 1/millionth Corvette, and a 2009 white 1.5 millionth Corvette. The Sky Dome is now off limits to visitors while the museum figures out how the hell it's going to get 8 cars out of a whopping great 30-foot deep hole. The rest of the museum remains open to visitors.
Bus in Brazil swallowed in giant sinkhole.
Drunken father crashes into sinkhole with 6-year-old son. In Taiwan, a construction site for a large building suffered a sinkhole, which ripped down part of a main street. The sinkhole dropped 60 feet off the street into the construction site below. An investigation was still underway as to the cause of the collapse, and the street had been cordoned off until further notice. However, late one evening, a 46-year-old father was riding his scooter along with his 6-year-old son. Nearby pedestrians attempted to warn the man of the sinkhole, but he sped past them and dived straight into the nearly 2-story hole. Witnesses immediately called for emergency services and police. The scooter had landed on the head of the 6-year-old boy, and he was rushed to hospital in critical condition. The father suffered minor injuries and had a blood alcohol concentration of 0.81. Police arrested the man for driving under the influence. The construction site investigation revealed that the construction company had failed to follow regulations in regards to support structures, and the lack of structural support led to the collapse. The construction crew and the architect in charge of overseeing the site will each be fined $1,000 each.
Giant Crimean sinkhole swallows car, killing 6 people. 6 people died when the car they were travelling in plunged into this 26-foot wide sinkhole on an unlit section of highway linking the Crimean capital Simferopol and the village of Nikolaevka. Among the dead are 3-year-old twins. The 34-year-old driver, Ibrail Eskandarov, was travelling in the disputed area with his young family, a friend and her 2 young children, late on September 28. These 2 children, a 1-year-old boy and a 12-year-old girl, were pulled from the mangled wreckage by rescue workers. Of the 8 people in the car, only they survived. The 1-year-old remains in a coma with traumatic brain injuries. Rescuers say the giant pit, which is at least 19 feet deep, would have suddenly appeared in the middle of the road in front of the car as the collapsing earth had damaged power lines, making it impossible to have seen the killer hole in time to avoid it.
Homes evacuated after a huge cavern opens under a driveway in Florida. It took just 15 minutes for this hole to expand into a huge cavern beneath a driveway in Pasco County, Central Florida Monday morning and almost completely swallow a car. According to witnesses, a woman who declined to be identified was driving her Hyundai and narrowly avoided being pulled into the gaping hole while trying to park. The fire rescue department responded to a call at around 10:45 a.m. that a car was tipping deeper into the hole as it grew to a diameter of about 10 feet within 15 minutes. No one was hurt, but 6 families in the holiday travel park community were told to leave their homes as a precaution. Geologists say they will need another 3 to 4 weeks to survey the cavern to determine if it is a true sinkhole. Sinkholes are a natural occurrence. Acidic groundwater flows into bedrock and dissolves it, creating cavities and caves which could cause collapses of this kind. A construction project nearby might also be responsible for the cavern. This is not the first time a large hole has appeared in the area in the past 6 months. Another sinkhole opened just a mile away. It's not known how long it will take to retrieve the car from the hole.
Man falls into a sinkhole in the middle of Hong Kong. When you think of Hong Kong, you generally think of a hustling, bustling international city, right? I mean, you don't think of sinkholes, do you? Well, last week, a Hong Kong man named Mr. Man found a sinkhole in the middle of Wan Cai, one of Hong Kong's busier districts. Mr. Man says he was just strolling along the sidewalk when the pavement gave way beneath his feet, and he tumbled into a nearly 16.5-foot deep pitch black hole. Witnesses called 911, and emergency services were able to pull Mr. Man out of the sinkhole after about 10 minutes. He was rushed to the hospital with a mild concussion and several fractures, but his condition is stable. The owner of the restaurant near to where Mr. Man fell into the sinkhole said that last week there had been construction to install a new water pipeline beneath the street. Experts speculate that the moisture from the water pipe may have sunk into the soil and caused part of the loose dirt to sink. Mr. Man just had the unlucky chance to be the one who found the sinkhole. A construction crew arrived on the site that evening and filled in the sinkhole.
A golfer fell into a sinkhole that opened up at the Ann Briar Golf Course in Waterloo, Illinois. The ground opened up beneath Mark Mahal at the 14th hole of the golf course. He dislocated his arm when he fell into the bell-shaped sinkhole. Golfers called Russ Knobb, general manager of the golf course, who brought a rope and ladder. Mark tried to climb the ladder but couldn't due to his injured arm. His friend, Ed Magaletta, climbed down instead. He made a makeshift sling for Mahal's arm and pushed him up the ladder while other golfers pulled with the rope. It was the first incident in recent memory of someone falling into a sinkhole in Illinois. Massive sinkhole opens up inside Tennessee Stadium. A massive sinkhole opened up inside a stadium at Austin Peay State University in Clarksville, Tennessee during construction work. The sinkhole, discovered by construction workers weeks ago, was initially only 5 feet wide. Once workers dug it out in search of stable rock, the hole turned out to be 30 to 50 feet wide and 40 feet deep. Sinkholes typically form in karst landscapes where acidic groundwater runs into the bedrock, dissolving the rock while creating cavities and caves that can collapse. Sinkholes are a natural occurrence, but they can also be caused by human influences, such as construction. The pumping of groundwater from aquifers lowers the water table, which can also accelerate the creation of sinkholes. Workers at the stadium expect to have the hole filled by the end of the week.
60-year-old Pamela Knox dodged death when the car she was driving fell into a 30-foot deep sinkhole in Toledo, Ohio. The woman was driving her car in downtown Toledo when a sinkhole opened up in the ground in front of her. A burst water main, inundated by heavy rainfall in recent weeks, may have weakened the ground under the pavement, causing the sinkhole to open. Authorities closed down the area, fearing the sinkhole may expand. The woman was able to escape from her car and the sinkhole with only minor injuries. A crane was needed to pull the car out of the hole. The water mains in the town were built of concrete in 1891. The accident is the first of its kind reported in Toledo.
Traffic was plunged into chaos in Mexico City on Thursday after a water main broke, creating a huge sinkhole on the city's outer beltway. One of the main causes of sinkholes in urban areas is water leaking from mains. Water is ejected from a broken main at high pressure. It penetrates the mud and rocks, eroding the surrounding ground, slowly creating a hole. Heavy weights such as vehicles passing over the hole can then result in the collapse of the top layer of soil and road surface into the void. The sinkhole measured 2 meters wide by 3 meters deep. Police were deployed in an effort to ease the congestion.
Sinkholes have been brought into the spotlight after a Florida man was killed in one that formed under his house. Sinkholes typically form in karst landscapes where acidic groundwater runs into the bedrock, dissolving the rock while creating cavities and caves that can collapse. Sinkholes are a natural occurrence, but they can also be caused by human influences, such as construction. Pumping of water from aquifers lowers the water table, which can also accelerate the creation of sinkholes. In urban areas, sinkholes can occur because of breaks in water mains or from sewer collapses. Authorities have begun demolishing the Florida house where the man was killed.